Today we're going to check out a mechanical keyboard from Xiaomi, who are a Chinese company you may have heard of. They're basically making whatever they want and are known for adopting a very Apple-like design aesthetic, and that's why I really wanted to check this one out. And thanks again to Banggood.com for providing me with these keyboards to show them to you guys. So here's the box, and again very Apple-like. It actually doesn't say the brand name or model name on the box in English, so that's a bit weird. But anyway, this is the Xiaomi Yuemi. Opening it up, we have some information which is all in Chinese, but I'll explain the features later. We have a white micro USB cable, and then the keyboard itself. And I love it when these keyboards come with these covers keeping the dust away. And I was looking forward to seeing this in person since the pictures looked pretty sleek, but just being honest, I was personally disappointed to be met with a glossy keyboard. And to be clear, this is just a personal preference, but I'm sure that many would feel the same. And this is unfortunate as the rest of the keyboard looks absolutely amazing for the most part. Again, it's not hard to see the Apple design influence on this keyboard. The white plastic is quite similar to the older MacBooks that were white, but then you turn it over and it has an absolutely gorgeous aluminium bottom shell, which is very similar again to say the back of an iPhone. It does have a nice silky texture to it though, so it's not as smooth as a MacBook, but this is something I really like. There is some faint writing on the back, but again it doesn't show any logo or anything, so the whole thing is extremely clean. It has a simple rectangular shape with rounded corners and filleted edges, and it has no natural incline. The font or typeface on the keycap is fine, but it's not the best. I personally dislike the bridging gaps in the characters, but this is done to make it easier to manufacture due to the double shot nature of the keycap. But this seems to be a rarity with double shot backlit keycaps anyway. And to finish it off, we have a clean white backlight, which is my preferred LED color if it isn't RGB, since it can be paired with anything. The white backlight looks really nice and fitting with the white keycaps and also the white top plate, which also acts as a backplate as well. So the backlighting reflects off the white background to make it more vibrant. The brightness can be controlled via the function key and the up and down arrow keys, allowing you to also turn the lights off completely. We can also disable the Windows key via the function and Windows keys, and as we can see, it lights up orange, which is the same for the caps and scroll lock keys. So what we basically have is a really beautiful crafted bottom half with a kind of cheap feeling glossy plastic layer slapped on top. I think I wouldn't have minded it as much if it had a satin or matte finish to it on top, but I really do think that they were so close to making a really amazing looking keyboard by just going all Apple on it and just making a mechanical version of the Apple Magic Keyboard, and that would be a keyboard I would love to have. But there's always a reason, and the main thing would probably be cost for production, and that would be passed down to the consumer, make it even more expensive. But don't get me wrong, it still looks amazing, and I would take gloss white over gloss black any day, since this doesn't take fingerprints and oils like black does. But enough of that, this is a 10 keyless keyboard with 87 keys, so we're missing the number pad on the right, so it makes it slightly more compact and allows for more natural shoulder positioning, allowing you to move the mouse closer to the center. On the bottom there's some rubber feet and two rubber tip flip up feet, which gives it an elevation of 6 degrees, which was highlighted by them as an optimal angle. The 6-degree angle seems to be a tad less aggressive than many other keyboards, and I personally like it as I sometimes find some keyboards are a touch too steep. And since there's no natural inclination without the flip up feet up, it makes the keyboard a bit thinner and slimmer looking. Taking off the keycaps, we can see these are double shot ABS keycaps, meaning that the legend is another piece of plastic, so they will never fade away. They're not thick and are quite thin, but they're not the thinnest at just above 1mm thick. And that brings us to the switches. These only come in reds and are TTC switches. So these are Chinese clones of the German made Cherry MX key switches, so they are pretty much the same but differ slightly in feel. But they do mimic the color scheme, so these red TTC switches are quite light at a 45 gram actuation force and are linear, meaning that there's no tactile bump or click, so it's just a smooth depression. In terms of smoothness, they feel pretty similar to Cherry MX Reds, maybe a touch smoother, so to me they feel just a bit rougher than Gatoron Reds. However, on the spacebar we have a TTC black switch, which as you can expect is heavier and is a linear switch. This also does make the spacebar less rattly, which is a common problem with very light spacebars. They use Cherry style stabilizers for the longer keys and they're really tight on mine. And they're quite good in that they're not rattly at all, but consequently are a touch mushy. And here's a quick sound test. One thing I like about this keyboard is that it doesn't make an effort to be a gaming keyboard or market it with that gaming tag, like many other mechanical keyboards. So it's just a plain solid mechanical keyboard. But that's also reflected in how it doesn't have N key rollover or even 6 key rollover. It actually just has 2 key rollover, which means that you're guaranteed at least 2 simultaneous key presses. But this only comes in with quite odd key combinations, so unless you want to press H, J and L at the exact same time, then it wouldn't be a problem. I personally had no problems when playing FPS games, so don't worry, WSD and all that will be fine. Now to the disassembly. There's a couple of Torx screws on the back and more under some keycaps, and you actually have to take off all the keycaps since they're larger than the holes in the plastic plate. Then I had to pry off the white plastic top bit, and then there are 2 more Torx screws under that. On their product page they mentioned that it has a 6-layer design, but it's pretty much just one more than standard. First we have the white plastic top plate, and of course by itself it's heaps flexible, but that isn't a problem. Then we have the PCB mounted onto the steel backplate, which is painted black and folded on all sides, which does make it more rigid. The PCB looks clean and nothing out of the ordinary. It does feature SMD lighting, meaning that the LEDs are surface mounted onto the PCB rather than being through-hole LEDs. And finally we have the bottom. The aluminium is about 1.5mm thick, and it does add some good heft to the keyboard, adding to the steel backplate. Together with the plastic it's about 2.5mm thick. The plastic does add some strength, but I always assumed that the plastic was there to prevent any shorting out or interference between the components and the aluminium, like other keyboards that I've seen. But this one has holes for each switch, allowing for a bit more clearance, making it thinner. So I'm not entirely sure what it's for, so if anyone knows then please do tell me. So overall it's a very nice keyboard and typing experience. It's obvious that it's had a lot of work put into it with how it looks. The bottom aluminium piece is amazing and is premium looking and feeling, and is among some of the best I've felt. But the glossy white plastic top just lets it down in my opinion, which is really unfortunate since it is the part that you'll see and touch the most. As said before, they probably had their reasons, which is probably to do with cost, and they would have been pushing into some high-end custom tier stuff if they did make it all metal. The TTC switches are quite nice actually for clone switches, but this keyboard only comes in reds, so they don't offer any variety, but I quite enjoyed the typing experience. But I don't want to bring the whole thing down because of my expectations and my preferences in looks. It's still a really great looking keyboard, and the glossy finish is only noticeable up close, but then you tend to forget about it. But some of you may like the glossy finish, and I think they've come out with something different from the rest of the competition, which I appreciate. But at its base it's a very simplistic keyboard with just the basic functions, all on a nice looking and solid foundation. Thanks again to Banggood.com for providing the keyboard to show you guys and their continued support. I'll leave the links in the description if you want to check it out and their other keyboards. They also gave me a discount code, so it ends up being a bit more affordable, especially for the quality. I think this one deserves a bit of a makeover on the top to do it some justice, so I might do that later on.